Hi, I'm Jonathan Block. In this video, I'll be doing Mellotron and Synth sound-on-sound looping using a Boss RE-202 Space Echo. It's really Frippertronics with a 6-second delay. Let's call it Mellotronics. The signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini and a Roland Aerophone AE-20 Synth. The output from both of those instruments goes into a JHS AB pedal, so I can switch between the instruments. The output from the JHS pedal goes into a Boss GT-1000core multi-effects. The stereo output from the core goes into a Boss RE-202 Space Echo, which I'm using strictly for sound-on-sound looping. And the stereo output from the Boss Space Echo goes into a Universal Audio Volt 276 interface that communicates back and forth with the iPad Pro. Got a basic setup here in GarageBand. I'm just using GarageBand as a tape recorder. Got some spatializer going, Grand Finale as a mastering app, but that's pretty much it. I have a link below in the description to a video where I walk through how I use GarageBand as a modern tape recorder. So we don't really need to worry about GarageBand. It's recording and we're going there. So again, I'll be using the Space Echo just for sound-on-sound looping. A link in the description to a video where I walk through this, as well as some info on how to get it into long delay mode, which is necessary to get up to a 6-second delay. Once you get it into long delay mode, you have to tap out the delay, I recommend having the mode selector head on 1. That gives you 2 seconds of delay, which is flashing here. Once you tap out that 2 seconds of delay, change the mode selector head to head 3, and that'll give you the 6 seconds. So even though this is flashing at 2-second increments, it is a 6-second delay. The knob that we're concerned with is the intensity knob that controls the repeats of the delay and the loop. At about 1 or 130 is the point where there's the least amount of volume decreasing and sound quality degradation over time, but there's no way on this unit to stop that degradation. This isn't designed for this, and if you don't like a sound that kind of gets a little more crunchy over time, this isn't the looper for you. And also if you want kind of static loops that don't change at all, again, you would probably use a traditional looper. You have to embrace the aesthetic of the sound. And you'll hear it. The top and the low end just kind of slowly disappear, and it just becomes more mid-range and a lot more woody. Very interesting sound. All right. I'll probably do a tutorial video. I talk about this all the time, and the video that I have linked in the description is a little short, doesn't really go in depth, so look for that in the future. Let's start with just going through the sounds quickly and with the effects and without the effects, and we'll get into the jam because the jam can tend to be kind of long here. And I'll talk about, at least in my head, how I have the structure set up. So on the Mellotron, we're using 2 classic sounds, 3 violins and brass from the Mark II. Those are all over albums from the 70s. We're using the JHS pedal just to switch back and forth between the instruments. Blue is the Mellotron, red is the Synth. Let's start with the Mellotron. And I got a volume pedal for the Mellotron, but not for the Synth. No effects right now except what's in GarageBand, spatializer, and I do have a little bit of reverb on, a plate reverb on the core all the time. So whether these other effects are enabled or not, there'll always be a little reverb. Let me run through these 2 sounds first. So we have 3 violins. So you can hear that reverb and spatializer. And then we also have brass. And I'll be using effects with those, so let's start with 3 violins. I'll use a phaser occasionally, which I love on Mellotron. And also a delay, master delay for the Korg, the master delay for the Boss. There are about, you can have 5 delays going at once with this unit. You have kind of single delays and this master delay. It's set up to a tape delay, and it works really well with the brass. And then with the rotary, you get kind of a different sound. So I'll use the delay with the violins as well. You get those nice tails. So those are the sounds for the Mellotron. Let me move over now to the WinSynth. I'm most of the time not going to be using any of the GT-1000core sounds because a lot of those effects are available right in the Aerophone itself. Let me start with the few sounds that I've created that I'm going to use here. We've got a classic saw. And that's actually not the sound. I've hit a different, I think I hit one of the function buttons, so it gave it some vibrato. Let's try now. That's better. Here's another, these are two saw waves with a little bit of delay between them. Triangle. And Juno strings, we'll use this as well. And finally, I might use this at some point, and just to have a little kind of sample and hold rhythmic thing going on here. So I would use that sound when the space echo is engaged so that it kind of keeps playing that as a loop. So those are all the sounds. I think structure-wise, what I'm thinking is just going back and forth between these two. So first thing I'll do, and I'll demonstrate this really quickly with a few sounds, I'm going to set up a loop on the space echo with the Mellotron. Then I do some WinSynth soloing over that. Then have that slowly fade out, and I'll add some WinSynth loop to that, and then do some soloing on the Mellotron. And then after a little bit of soloing, I'll create yet another loop as the WinSynth loop fades in the background for the Mellotron. Do a little more WinSynth over that, you get the idea. I'm just going to go back and forth. So if the Mellotron's providing the loop, the WinSynth is doing the soloing. If the WinSynth does the loop, then the Mellotron does the soloing. But because we're looping and fading, there's really no stopping. It's just this kind of continuous morphing in and out. And the end is a little more hinky. As you could say, I don't really have that set in my mind of how I'm going to get out of this. But the one thing is that you can, as I mentioned before, you can really get this to fade out really slowly. So I'm not going to have it do the maximum of that, but I will have we're going to look at like a 4 or 5 minute fade out at the end of the jam, but and I'm not going to do any talking. I'm not going to come back, so I'll just have it fade out, and you can kind of get a better sense of how this unit impacts the sound over time. Hopefully that'll help you decide whether you want to take a chance with the space echo for this sound on sound looping. All right, let me just do a quick little loop here just so you get a demonstration, and then we'll get right into the jam. So I'll create it here with the Mellotron and then just a little soloing. I want to do this as fast as possible. I will go slower during the actual jam itself. So I think we're going here. Let's see what we can come up with. So let me let that loop keep going. It's actually, the sound is degrading already. If you can't hear, the kind of low and high end are going away. It's getting really mid-rangey. Switch it over to the WinSynth for some soloing. We just keep this here for now. Get to a sound we can use. How about we'll just do the saw. Then I can turn the intensity down just a little up to noon. We'll start to make it start to fade a little faster. And then I'll just add a wind synth loop to that. So you can hear it fading already. At this point, I'll turn it back on. I'll move that back up to about 1 o'clock. So it'll keep fading in the background, but I don't want the new one to fade so fast. So I used 3 different wind synth sounds for that, a couple of saw waves and a triangle. So these wind synth loops can get a little more dense, quicker than sometimes the Mellotron ones. And then I can do the same thing, turn this off, turn that delay on, and just do some soloing, get that back to the Mellotron. All right, you get the idea. Let me set up everything and I will do the jam. But I'll say it right now, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.